Good morning, everyone. It is Sunday. We are here for week 2. My name is Sean Coleman. I am the host of DraftDojo, and today we will be kicking it off with some of the players that we're looking for this week that could be applied to your fantasy lineups, but also we're going to look into some DFS as well. And I have a few lineups that I'm going to be going through specifically, but I want to make sure that we are going through the data. We are going through who is likely the best outcome for the stacks this week, who's likely to be your boom players, your bust players. So we're going to be going through some of the chalk work that we could be looking for, but as usual, I'm going to be going through some of the contrarian picks as well, just to see how we can get a leg up on our competition. So without further ado, let's get it. Okay, so the first thing that I'm looking at when I'm going into week 2, trying to do a comparison of week 1 as well. And one of the most interesting things that I started looking at was what was the comparison between fantasy points, who really blew up last week, versus what was expected. And I started looking through some of Scott Barrett's analysis, and some of the things that really was appealing to me was specifically what were the expected fantasy points, what does that look like throughout the course of a game, and where do those points primarily come from? And one of the things that Scott Barrett was pointing out the most was expected fantasy points per carry by yards from the end zone, and then expected fantasy points per target by yards from the end zone. And actually there was the data was very similar whether it was yards or targets by yards. So if you actually think of the length of the football field and where the expected points come from, most of the expected points are coming from clearly near the end zone. So when we look at the factors of the red zone volume, when you look at your players who had really big weeks, what did that red zone work look like? And I think a lot of us know that clearly to get the fantasy points that we're looking for, it has to be the red zone work. But what does the data show? The data actually shows that the correlation is almost the exact same once you get outside of the 11-yard line. Fantasy points are flat throughout the course of the game. And it's only until you start getting into the red zone work to where your expected fantasy points go up the majority of the time. We can have big players that are getting a ton of volume up and down the field but don't get any red zone work. But we know that's few and far between. So when I'm thinking about who are my boom players, but also who are my bust players, it's going through some of this data to actually reflect how that could impact you, your lineups, your home leagues, DFS as well. So I'm just going to go through and I'm going to highlight some of the individuals that had the biggest expected fantasy points due to their red zone work versus what their actual points per game ended up being. So at the top of the list was Davante Adams. His expected fantasy points because of his red zone work was 37.1 fantasy points. And I think this would be formatted for a PPR format, so take it for what you will. The math is going to work out where if you have Davante Adams in a standard league, it's still going to be fruitful for you. But thinking about probably your half PPRs, your PPRs, or like DFS settings that does rely on a PPR format, Davante Adams led the way at 37.1 expected fantasy points, and he yielded 30 points. So we're not far away from what was expected because of his red zone work versus what he actually converted. Joe Mixon, we know, gets the ball a lot, and due to a lot of the game script, Either Cincinnati's in a dogfight where they need to slow down the clock a little bit, give Joe Mixon more of the work, or once they get down to the red zone, it becomes a Joe Mixon, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins game. So Joe Mixon, 35.2 expected fantasy points, ended up with 21.5 points per game. So you see there is a natural swing between expected fantasy points. We got into the red zone, but Joe Mixon wasn't the one who carried it across the line. But I mean, either way, still fruitful overall when we're comparing where the points per game were. Expected fantasy points, Jamar Chase was 33.2. He yielded 28.9. James Taylor, 30.8. He yielded 27.5 points per game. Cooper Kupp, 29.2. He actually exceeded because he was getting so much of that volume in that first game, 31.8 points. Curtis Samuel, 28 expected points, 19.2 points per game. And then a few more down the list. Barkley, 26.8 expected points. He also yielded higher at 33.4. We know Barkley was getting a ton of the work last week, which is why we're all excited about him this week. He's one of our chalk players. I'll talk more about him in a little bit. But Javonte Williams, 26.4 expected points, 19.8 points per game. So, I mean, there's definitely some correlation between what is expected and then what the outcome actually is, and that's who you really want to be who you want to find in your week's matchup. Who is likely not so much to get the peppers back and forth up and down the field, but who is going to really be that load on that 11-yard line and moving towards obviously the goal. So I want to talk about a few of these players and how I've strategized what these expected fantasy points look like versus when I'm setting up my DFS lineups. And we're going to go through STOKASTIC's optimizer as well. So I'm going to do a little bit of a comparison between what does the optimizer say that I'm doing versus what I'm plugging into DraftKings or FanDuel. And let's look at the comparisons between those. Without further ado, let's take a look at some lineups. And I got a decent amount of lineups for this week. I'm actually just going to go in here. This is the lineup that we want to. I'm going to edit this lineup. Already cleared it out. Some of my big stacks of the week, I want to talk about those a little bit more because it is really interesting when you actually look at the primary stacks overall. I have the Raiders as my top stack of the week, as do some of the other DFS colleagues as well. But to be really transparent about this lineup, there's two different ways that we can look at it. So when I think about Derek Carr last week, we know that Davante Adams got an absurd amount of target share. I mean, he was north of 45% in target share to where Hunter Renfrow and Darren Waller couldn't eat. And so it's already been said that they want to not rely so much on Davante Adams, but it was a good thing. It's a good thing that Derek Carr and Davante Adams were naturally showing to the other teams, hey, we have this rhythm. This is going to be something that you're going to have to study in film, which allows week 2s, week 3s, and moving forward for the Raiders to fluctuate and add in more Hunter Renfrow, to add in more Darren Waller, because naturally, if you know that connection is there between quarterback and Davante Adams, then it's a problem for every team studying film moving forward. So I love the Raiders stacks this week, and I do want to call out Alex Baker from STOKASTIC did a fantastic job reviewing what the value is on the stacks. So when we actually start looking at a double stack where I'm taking a quarterback and then I'm taking two other players on their team that could yield value, likely wide receivers and or running backs that are passing backs. and getting a combination of those. So that was actually the highest percentage of success rate. Justin Herbert ribs will have a chance to play next week. Okay, so Justin Herbert next week, he'll have a chance to play. But with that being said, Alex Baker was highlighting that if you're going to build out a successful DFS lineup, you really want to think about the way that you're strategically stacking. So we have Derek Carr. We know that would be our quarterback. We would obviously want Devontae Adams, but then we have our options between a Hunter Renfrow and a Darren Waller. And I just think when you're going into this week, Adams is not going to get, theoretically, shouldn't get the 17 targets that he saw in the first game. But we know that Arizona is not going to be able to cover him. And he should be able to put up another outing of 25, 30, 35 fantasy points this week. So we want that natural stack between Derek Carr and Devontae Adams. But we also have our options as well. Like I said, I think the Cardinals are not overly effective against the tight end play. They're not effective up to this point from week one against the wide receivers. So it's more of a pick your poison. I personally like more of a Darren Waller option. If Devontae Adams is eating up a lot of that play, Devontae Adams and Hunter Renfrow can kind of can share roles and compete in that slot type of position. And so when you have two players that can play a similar position of the field, it takes away from overall value. And clearly Derek Carr wants arguably the best receiver in the league to get that target share. So I'm going to hedge my bet with Darren Waller on my pick alongside of Derek Carr. And the highlight from Alex Baker was saying that it actually shares no interest in doing more like a triple stack where I'll take a Derek Carr, a Devontae Adams, a Hunter Renfrow, and taking the Darren Waller approach as well. Generally, there's no correlating data to show that is more successful than just taking the double stack itself. So when you're building up the DFS lineups, don't overboard it on one team. Rarely does the game script go where a quarterback can feed to the league winning or DFS championship winning volume that you need when having too many players from one team. So that's my top stack of the week. Some of the other stacks that could be interesting, that's more of a contrarian view. We know that from Washington's perspective, Carson Wentz had a really good game. I think that caught everybody by surprise. Those who were on it fared really well, but you still see the utilization of Carson Wentz, and I'll just go ahead and go through here really quickly. So if I'm looking at my optimizer and I'm looking at Carson Wentz, as of right now, this morning, Sunday morning, Carson Wentz is sitting at 7.6% in a ownership percentage. We have Curtis Samuel at 10.3%. We have Jahan Dotson at 4.1%. So by and large, everyone is looking at last week as a fluke. So you can use that to your advantage if you're doing a DFS contrarian build out where you're willing to throw your money towards the Commanders. Again, Carson Wentz had 4 throwing touchdowns, which was fantastic. Is he going to have that every game? No, but granted, the Lions just let the Eagles score 38 points against them, right? So it's not like they don't have an opportunity, and they're going to be inside. And Carson Wentz, he's not the most natural of a runner, but he's a big body runner. He's not going to be like a Jalen Hurts that they faced against last week. But the Lions are definitely going to have a problem if Carson Wentz is playing to the level that he was playing at last week. And you can get away from a lot of your competitors if you go the contrarian route and they hit. Now, this is... Contrarian is not for the weak of heart. Let me just be fucking clear about that. It's going to disappoint you a shitload. But if you are really trying to make your money out of it, you have to think about the entire field of play. And we know if there are 100 competitors in general, and 99 of them, being dramatic, 98, 97, 96 of them are going away from the Washington team, going away from that stack, but you're the one who goes against the grain, you pick that stack, and they hit. You've now eliminated 96, 97, 98, 99% of your competition. And when you start to look at where the $1 million lineups are, $100,000 winners, even $50,000 winners, it is a combination between chalk players, who everybody agrees I can't not have that player, but also the players that no one is expecting to play. So I love the Washington is more of a contrarian view this week because no one is banking on them doing it again. My other contrarian team, and it is hard for me to say because I don't have absolute faith in this team overall, but since I am a betting man, I will bet against the field. And with that team, I am going to bet on the Giants alongside Daniel Jones. And looking at a Daniel Jones, Saquon Barkley, my other option of stack that I would be pairing with that is most likely Sterling Shepard. I just think from what we saw in week 1, Sterling Shepard is likely to be the person that will fill that timeshare in the number 1 target role, at least for now. So, and this is also the cheaper option, right? You have the Raiders as a more expensive build out. Of course, Devontae Adams is going to be more expensive than your Terry McLaurins or your Jahan Dotsons. It's going to be more expensive than your Sterling Shepards. So the Raiders can give you the most expected fantasy points, but it's also going to cost you the most money. The Washington Redskins are going to be that upside that you are saying if they can repeat and people clearly are not picking them, I'm going to have a good week. And then if you're really going your heavy contrarian route and you're just saying, you know what, I really want a dart throw. I'm only in one big lineup. Here's my chance. I'm trying to get a big payout. Then Giants may be your way to go. Daniel Jones, just to be clear, was one of the most accurate passers of week 1. And just to paint a picture of how accurate, when I look at week 1 on target percentage specifically, only Josh Allen was more accurate in week 1. Daniel Jones had a 90% on target percentage in week 1. And that's without having a crazy amount of records. And he didn't even eclipse 200 passing yards, but he was still accurate. And when I look at Carolina's secondary, it is an improved secondary. It's not a bad secondary, but they've shown last week that they can be beat. The Browns beat them, Kareem Hunt beat them, Nick Chubb beat them. So while Daniel Jones may not be able to throw for 350 yards, he does have the option in his safety valve of Saquon Barkley, which they used in week 1, to provide value. And Sterling Shepard was a person that shows I can get a few catches a game, but I can make those big plays for you. And I know I've had Sterling Shepard year over year. You have the injuries that are plagued into that. But again, we have to go with someone that is going to give us the upside if you're trying to go against the grain. So I wanted to talk about that a little bit more and just to speak on how that actually looks in play. And I'll rewind this just a little bit. So starting off with my top stacks, I am looking at Derek Carr and company. Derek Carr is $6,200 right now in DraftKings, 12.8% to your ownership percentage. Devontae Adams has $8,600, 25.9%. So again, Devontae Adams is expensive, and about 26% of the field is saying, I want Devontae Adams in this week. But this is almost a chalk player. I can't afford to not have Devontae Adams if he goes off again. If that relationship is there, especially if I'm building my stack, it has to be there. But even outside of that stack, he's almost a person that you have to chalk in regardless of the cost, because if he is hitting and you don't have them, you are at a significant disadvantage to being able to catch up to the rest of the floor. So, and Darren Waller is at 5,600 with 8.4%. So, hey, I like a Darren Waller there. Hunter Renfro's at 6.9%. So we have about a 1.5 of ownership difference. And Hunter Renfro's on the lower side. So if you're a betting person and you want to throw in Hunter Renfro versus Darren Waller, and Renfro gets more of the target share this week, you're going to have a huge leg up on the rest of the competition, because you're only competing against 6.5–7% of the field, which is ideal overall when we're looking at these stacks. And then just in a quick review of my other two stacks, my Washington stack, which I reviewed a second ago, Carson Wentz is at 7.6% ownership. You have Curtis Samuel at 10.3%, Terry McLaurin at 4%. We know Curtis Samuel got that work, but if you want Terry McLaurin, he's at 4%. Jahan Dotson at 4.1%. That is a team that if they go off, their ownership is extremely low. You could get in against the floor for almost any of the players that you're picking up. So that's one that jumps out at me right away. And then the big contrarian one for me is the New York Giants. Daniel Jones at 5.4%, Saquon 23.3%. So he's very similar to your chalk view. I like these teams because they have kind of a chalk player, and then we have some contrarian built into the team itself. And then Sterling Shepard is 2.1% ownership. Sterling Shepard goes off, and I get 20 points out of them. See you later to the rest of the field. That's literally how I'm viewing this. There are some other interesting matchups and stacks this week. I think you could also do a Dolphin stack if you wanted to consider a Tua Tagovailoa. You wanted to look at a Tyreek Hill, and then you wanted to either go the expensive route and stack up the Jalen Waddle or Chase Edmonds. There's options in there. I think a lot of people are appealing to Tua right now in Tyreek Hill. Just to give you guys a scope, Tua Tagovailoa is at 4.9% ownership. Tyreek Hill is at 17.7%. So there's, again, a chalk player versus the upside that Tua could provide you. Jalen Waddle is at 4.4%. So everyone is basically saying, since week one, see you later, Jalen Waddle. Clearly, Tyreek Hill is going to be the alpha on this team. That's not going to be the case for every week. So do I want Tua? Yeah, I need to if I'm going to build out a stack here. If I take Tyreek Hill at 7,100, he's 17.7% against the floor. Who's my other person? Like, I could take an expensive build out, take Jalen Waddle at 4.4%, and hope that Tua has a really good game against the Ravens and is able to spread out. Hopefully the Ravens are going to be able to move the ball up and down on the Miami defense. Miami proved pretty stiff week one, but if this ends up being a higher scoring game and Baltimore is predicted to have the win, I'm just on projected points right now, that should force Tua to go more to a passing attack. So that's one of the dart throws that we have out there. But there are some pretty interesting stacks overall this week. I think what I'm going to go through specifically is just one of my lineups. Let's go ahead. I'm going to try the Derek Carr build out. That's the build out that I like from an expensive build out, but then we'll go ahead and pair it up with the optimizer as well. So I'll do some of these build outs. We're just going to go ahead and build them out really quickly and then go through different options. So let's go and add in Derek Carr. Let's throw Devontae Adams in the mix. I am going to also throw in Darren Waller into that mix as well. I think that's a high likelihood that it comes out of that. Some of the chalk players that we mentioned from the other teams, definitely want Saquon Barkley. I can't afford to be against the field if Saquon Barkley is hitting on that. And then some of the other players that are really generating a buzz right now. Darrell Henderson is clearly looking like the lead back versus Cam Akers. I don't know if there's some inside work there that we don't know, but Darrell Henderson clearly took over the lead work in touches. The goal line opportunities. Atlanta will likely not be able to keep up with the Rams this week, so we anticipate there's going to be more of a rush. Maybe the Rams are still just playing it safe with Cam Akers and the injury previously. We know, obviously, the high value that he has to the team, so there might be some inner workings there that we don't understand as of yet, but Henderson is one of the top plays right now. Alex Baker and some of the other STOKASTIC members are also throwing in James Robinson into that mix because it's hard to predict where he would be from a fantasy perspective. We don't know if last week was a good sign that he is really healthy from his injury, or if it just came down to the game itself. But Indy is going to be without Michael Pittman, so we know Jonathan Taylor is going to get a ton of the load in general. Jacksonville won't be able to stop it. The Jaguars should be playing from behind in this one, and Robinson provides a healthy amount of running game utilization to where he can slow down the game a little bit, but he also catches from the backfield. So I do like Henderson. I like Robinson as well. And a few other players that just pique my interest would be like a Javonte Williams, because Javonte got so much of the expected points versus points per game last week. I mean, he was in a top 10 player when we're talking about where that red zone utilization is. We had that fumble, very disappointing because I was banking on Javonte last week, but I do like him from that perspective. So for me, in my lineup, I'm going to go with more of a contrarian approach. There's a lot of people that are on Henderson right now for understanding reasons, but I'm going to go James Robinson because I think that when I have Devontae Adams, most of the floor has him. I see Barkley, most of the floor has him. Derek Carr and Waller, we're going to hover around, 7, 8, 9% ownership. So there's a little bit less competition there, but I really need to start looking at the players that can give me that upside, that had a good week one appeal, that the rest of the floor is not utilizing. And some of those other contrarian type of picks for me in this build out, and this is my $1 million build out, I look at players that are level, players like St. Brown, which is having a historic start to his year from the ending of last year. So I like St. Brown, but that may put me at a salary disadvantage here. So let's just go ahead and keep St. Brown in right now. I think he provides a very safe floor for me just in case someone else starts to flop. I am going to go the Bengals defense. When we're looking at the DFS values, Bengals gives great value against Dallas, who is going against a second-string quarterback. I don't think that Rush is going to be able to get the ball off consistently. I think that Cincinnati is going to be able to bring a lot more pressure, disrupt the pass. So that offense should struggle quite a bit, and the running game was not relied on even in week one, even though Zeke looked good at over 5 yards a carry. Tony Pollard didn't look as polished going into the first game, but I'm going to bank on the Bengals. They're really inexpensive, and Dallas does not have the ideal scenario right now to be able to make this happen. So that's going to be one of my other build out, which helps a little bit on the floor for us in remaining player value and salary cap. So if I'm looking at some other wide receivers, I have to start buying a little bit low if I'm going in with Amon. Some of the other players on the lower level, Jacoby Myers is easy, someone that I look at in the $4,000 range. I mean, he's the clear, most likely the wide receiver one, and Mac Jones did not look good last year, but or last week, but it is what it is. Again, not many people are going to be taking him. I like that idea, and then I've really just spent a healthy amount of my budget. So Pickens, nobody loves, but this is my guy right here. Let's go Greg Dortch. Easy plug-in. So that's an easy plug-in for me. So I'm able to build out a lineup with Derek Carr, Saquon Barkley, James Robinson, Devontae Adams, Amon St. Brown, Jacoby Myers, Darren Waller, Greg Dortch, and the Bengals defense with still $100 remaining. That's an absolute steal for me. Watch me do this. I'm going to go ahead and assign that lineup. So I just assigned that lineup. That way you guys know that I am for real when I'm talking about these stacks. And this is something that I'm really hopeful for in this Raiders stack. And the optimizer most likely won't love some of the other picks in here, but it's okay. I'm going to show you something specifically. If you've never used the optimizer from Stokastic, Stokastic is fantastic. I mean, leaders in DFS knowledge, and I definitely recommend you guys going over there. They actually have a free trial right now. You have your 3 days for free. So if you are not doing the main events build outs here at 12 o'clock Central Time, 1 o'clock Eastern Time, and you're going to do some of the later games or the Monday games, definitely go to Stokastic and put in your free trial for 3 days. You can get the remainder of the weekend. It's a hell of a value. It's worth it to take the same tools that experts are using and start putting that to your advantage rather than just blindly picking players. Or if you've already created your lineup, go ahead and go to Stokastic, put in your free trial for 3 days, and then put in the numbers. Go ahead and just go in and put in the lineups that you already have into the optimizer and let the data tell you, are you already on the right track? Is there something else we can improve on? So let's go ahead and look at where our build outs will line up to their value. So let's look at the Raiders. Derek Carr, Devontae Adams, Darren Waller. Those are our 3 guys from that team. We know that we took Greg Dortch for the Cardinals. We also took the Bengals defense. We did not take anyone from the Seahawks or the 49ers. We did not go with the Rams and the Falcons. However, Rams is another build-out. It's a popular build-out right now. Stafford's a great deal. It's definitely a way that you could go. I would go Matthew Stafford, Henderson, and Cooper Kupp with that lineup. And Cooper Kupp's going to be an expensive build-out. It's hard to make it work with Cooper Kupp, just being honest. It's hard enough to do it with Devontae Adams. So Allen Robinson is another guy where you can get him for $5,500, 7.1%. Not a lot of people love what they saw in week 1, me being myself as well. But, hey, if he hits, that's all you're going for. This is $1 million lineup, baby. So, let's see. We went ahead and added Jacoby Myers as well. $4,400 for 6% ownership. I will take that. And then we went Saquon Barkley, my chalk player. I will take that as well. And then we went James Robinson. Look at James Robinson, $5,600. James Robinson is sitting at 1.7% ownership percentage. And that is a smash for me. I will take that. Robinson, please come through. Let's go, baby. Please come through today. Come through today. 1.7% ownage. Whew, I am on that. But look, I said, people are so confident that the Colts are going to shut down this game that even ETN is 1.5%. They have no faith that the Jaguars are going to be able to run the ball whatsoever in this game. So, I'll take it. I will take that all day. And then we went with my guy, Amon St. Brown at $6,500. He's costly. But again, he's 12.4%. So we're going to do a balance here. Now, looking at the balance, my value ranking is greater than 90%. So when they're looking at my team, they value my team as a high value team, but my contrarian ranking is under 10%, meaning that I have a very valuable team, but I'm not going against the grain a ton. It's less than 10% of my total value. So something that I would consider here is if I'm looking for a way to distinguish myself against the common play, is I would probably end up taking an Amon, taking that out of the equation where his 12% ownership is out. It leaves me $6,600 if you guys just want to do a very similar build out to this. So for the $6,600 build out. If I was going team by team, that gives me the option of getting a wide receiver, which I'm looking to fill in this flex spot. Gives me a wide receiver of, who would I want? Who would I want if I didn't play I could play Deontay Johnson is there. He actually would save quite a bit. Najee Harris also can still fit in that budget. At 6% ownership for Najee, at 5.2% for Deontay Harris. Again, I'm trying to go a little bit more contrarian if that's where my lineup is saying, hey, you're not being risky enough. I'm looking for someone that is on the lower ownership percentage to go against the grain more. So those are some players that I could look at. I could also consider someone like a Jalen Waddle. Jalen Waddle's at 4 point. Let's plug in Jalen Waddle and just see where they. So my value went down. My contrarian view is still around the same. So they're just kind of netting, and I think when you have Barkley and Adams in there, it weights so heavily against a contrarian view that I'm naturally fighting that contrarian ranking right now. But I will not take a Waddle over an Amon St. Brown right now. I think the Lions in the Washington game is going to be a better game than people anticipate, and I want that consistency from Amon-Ra St. Brown to be able to elevate my value if somebody else were to flop. So that's my quick recap of this week, guys. I hope you guys really enjoyed it, but we're just going through some DFS. We're going to be doing some of the later games as well, but that's some of the eyes that you can be looking out. So if you're going to sit back, review this. Let's go through our Raiders. Think about that. Let's go Commando. Let's go through the Commanders. Definitely a build out that would be appealing. The Giants build out is appealing. Giants build out is the least expensive build out. You're going to be able to not only stack those players, but you're going to be able to pay on a higher end side for some of the other people on the floor. So just be on the lookout. Again, go online, go to your computer, your phone, stokastic.com. Do the 3-day trial. Help yourself win more money right now. Utilizing these tools is invaluable. I mean, I can go in, set the main games. I can go through and specifically set a salary that I want, which are some of the other tools that a lot of the professionals will do as well, where you have a $50,000 budget, but I want to act like I have $49,000. I want to do a build out less expensively and then see what I can come out with and see what I can start adding on top of. So I do like those build outs, guys, but if you wanted to take a look at some other build outs, I recommend taking a look at the Dolphins build out, taking a look at the Rams build out. They're definitely appealing overall, but we are here again with DraftDojo, and that is our recap. My name is Sean Coleman. I am the host of DraftDojo. Let's get excited for week 2. We're just getting started again here, but be sure to drop a like on the videos, subscribe, comment. We will respond. Even if you hate the content, you hate what we're talking about, good. That fuels us even more. We need that type of response as well. So be sure to support us. We are just getting started. Drop a like, subscribe, comment. Let's make this engaging. We're going to be doing some live streams as well, which should start generating some of the buzz that we're looking for as well. But I appreciate everything that you guys have given us up to this point. You are absolutely fantastic. Join the dojo. Jump in with us. DraftDojo. My name is Sean Coleman. I am out, baby. Let's go week 2.